1.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July meeting of the Mansfield Shire Council. I'd like to welcome my fellow councillors, council executives and staff, and in particular, I'd like to welcome our new acting CEO, Bill Millard. Welcome along, Bill. It's great to have you along. Firstly, I will call now on each councillor and ask them to verbally that they can see and hear all the councillors and the proceedings. Councillor Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Councillor Rabi.
G'day, Mr. Mayor. I can see all councillors, council officers and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Sladden.
I can hear the proceedings and I can see all council staff and councillors.
And Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Thank you. I'll now ask each councillor to confirm by raising their hand that they could all hear each statement of the councillors. Thank you. Apologies, Mr. CEO, do we have any apologies tonight?
There are no apologies, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll now read the statement of commitment and call on each councillor to confirm their commitment. As councillors of Mansfield Shire, we are committed to ensuring our behaviour meets the standards set by the Mansfield Shire Councillor Code of Conduct and Councillor Charter. We will at all times faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in us by the community. Councillor Holcomb.
I confirm my statement of commitment.
Councillor Rabi.
I confirm my commitment.
Councillor Sladden.
I confirm my commitment.
Councillor Webb.
I confirm my commitment.
Thanks, councillors. I'll now call on our Deputy Mayor, Mark Holcomb, to recite Council's acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our meeting is being held on the lands of the Tungarang people and we wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. We would also like to pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. I'll now call on each councillor and ask them to declare whether they have any conflict of interest in relation to any agenda items tonight. Councillor Holcomb.
I have no conflict of interest. No conflict of interest with respect to any agenda items.
Councillor Rabi.
I have no conflict of interest with respect to any agenda items on tonight's minutes.
Councillor Sladden.
I have no conflicts of interest to declare on any of the items on tonight's agenda.
And Councillor Webb.
I have no conflicts of interest to declare on tonight's agenda.
Thanks, councillors. Item number 7 is the confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a motion in relation to this item? Councillor Rabi.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That the minutes of the Mansfield Shire Council meeting held on the 28th of June 2022 be confirmed as an accurate record.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Webb. Any questions in relation to the minutes? In that case, can I have a vote on the minutes? All those in favour? Motion is carried. There are no representations or no notices of motion tonight. Item 10 is the Mayor's report. Councillors, can I have a motion in relation to the Mayor's report? Councillor Holcomb.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move the motion that Council receive the Mayor's report for the period 29th of June 2022 to 10th of July 2022.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. A seconder. Councillor Webb. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item number 11 is reports from from council-appointed representatives. The Australia Day Awards Committee has not met, so there's no reports there. Mansfield Shire CEO Employment Matters Committee, that committee has met and is still progressing the appointment of a CEO for the Mansfield Shire. The Goulburn Murray Client Alliance, there's no report there. In fact, we have no more reports. Except for, no, Councillor Rabi, do you have a final report for the North East Local Government waste form, or that is not applicable now?
Only in respect to the fact that the North East Local Government Waste Forum was closed down on the 1st of July this year, taken over by Recycle Victoria. Council has been asked, all councils have been asked by Dalwood to forward on nominations for the new body that will assist the RV, Recycle Victoria, and the Minister. And I suppose we'll report back at some stage to see whether I've been nominated or not, as you kindly have nominated me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's good. We'll wait with interest to see that. Thanks, Councillor Rabi. There being no other reports, could I have a recommendation, please, Councillor Rabi?
Yeah, I'd like to move that Council note the verbal reports provided by councillors in relation to their representation on external committees.
Seconder for that, Councillor Sladden. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item number 12 is public question time. We have no public questions tabled tonight. Item 13 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Councillors, do we have any questions in relation to that report? No. Can I have a motion? Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion that Council receive and note the interim acting Chief Executive Officer's report for the period 17th of June 2022 to 12th of July 2022.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Seconder, Councillor Rabi. Councillor Holcomb, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, just to say it was a very good first report from our acting CEO, Bill Millard. So thank you, Bill, for that. And it was very extensive. Thank you.
Councillor Rabi, a seconder.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the opportunity to welcome Bill Millard aboard. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried. Item 13.2.1, the Mansfield District Hospital proposed licence of Buckland Room and Anderson Hall. The responsible officer is Manager of Planning and Environment, Melissa Crane. Melissa, are you coming on along?
Melissa,
coming in?
Melissa is being admitted at the moment.
Thank you. Melissa?
She's trying to join, I'm sorry.
All right.
Still attempting to join. She's at home. Okay, Melissa's
The
up
joys
now.
Joys of technology, Lisa.
Melissa's with us now.
Welcome, Melissa, to the July meeting of the Mansfield Shire Council. We're currently on item 13.2.1, which you're the responsible officer. Councillors, do we have any comments or queries of Melissa? Councillor Rabi.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Welcome, Melissa. Just if you could talk me through the fact that the hospital's been using Buckland Room and Anderson Hall for the last year or so, and they've had their COVID vaccination clinic there. Can you walk me through how much money they've spent already and what they've done to improve that facility?
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Mansfield District Hospital, while they've been in the building for the COVID vaccination clinic, have spent close to $10,000 on the building, including doing a range of electrical works that were fairly urgently needed, as well as replacing 2 reverse cycle air conditioners and doing an internal paint of the whole of the building.
Yeah, thanks for that, Melissa. And so a significant amount of money spent there then.
Councillor Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Melissa, the community groups that are using this facility at the moment, how will they be impacted?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, there's the hospital is more than happy to facilitate allowing some of the community groups back in there outside of the hours that they'll be using it. And we'll work closely with the hospital to arrange for community groups where possible to go back in when they want to. There are a range of the community groups which have already found alternative lodgings and they're happy where they are. But we'll certainly be working with anyone who wants to use the facility to provide options where possible.
And if any future community groups wish to use it, how do they go about that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, any future community groups that would like to use it will need to come through council offices, and we'll work closely with the hospital to make sure that to work through the options for them using them when the hospital isn't using it. So there'll be set hours that they will have reserved for the hospital to use the building. And then they've also indicated that they'd be happy to open it up if they're not using it within those set hours to make that available as well. So they're being very facilitatory to try and allow community groups access to that building through this process as well.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sladen.
Thanks, Mayor. Ms. Crane, just to clarify Councillor Holcomb's question and your response, so bookings will still go through council, not through the hospital?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. They'll come through council. We've spoken through a process of how we will arrange that with the hospital. So the bookings will be managed through council, access to the building and a walkthrough of the building will be done by the hospital. So that way they can make sure that it doesn't impact any of their service provision in the building.
Thanks, Ms. Crane.
Thank you.
Councillor Rabi.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. One more question here, just for clarity, that the proposed agreement would be that the hospital pay all outgoings. Is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The hospital will be paying outgoings going forward on this site.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Ms. Crane. No more questions.
Councillors, can I have a motion in regards to this agenda item? Councillor Sladen.
Thanks, Mayor. The recommendation is the council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a licence with the Mansfield District Hospital for the rent of the Buckland Room, Anderson Hall, and associated office spaces, generally in accordance with the following terms. 1, a 12-month term with the option for 2 extensions, and 2, rental of $400 per week ex GST plus outgoings.
Thanks, Councillor Sladen. Seconder, Councillor Rabi. Councillor Sladen, do you wish to speak to the motion?
This provides an opportunity for the hospital to continue the fantastic allied health services that they have been providing over the past 12 months or so out of this facility, and also allows them to prepare for their new construction, which they recently received funding for. And yeah, as Councillor Rabi said earlier, commend them for the work that they've done all through the whole COVID pandemic. And yeah, we look forward to a good relationship with the hospital for this venture. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sladen. Councillor Rabi is seconded. You wish to speak to the motion?
Well, just touching on the points, Mr. Mayor, the questions that have been asked and the answers given, that especially by Councillor Holcomb, that no one's going to be dispossessed out of this deal with our community. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Crane, for your attendance. So we move on to item 13.3.1, which is the Mansfield Emergency Services Precinct feasibility study and preliminary business case. The responsible officer is General Manager of Community and Corporate Services, Dina Bleckett. Welcome, Dina. Councillors, do we have any questions or queries in relation to this motion? This agenda item? Councillors, can I have a motion? Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion that Council receives the Stage 2 Mansfield Emergency Services Precinct feasibility study and preliminary business case, that it endorses the recommendations of the feasibility study report for the Mansfield Emergency Station Precinct, and it authorises the Chief Executive Officer to advocate for and accept opportunities to fund detailed design and build stages of the Mansfield Emergency Station Precinct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Rabi. Councillor Holcomb, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd firstly like to say it's a privilege to move this motion. I think this motion is very important to a whole lot of people in this community. It was probably 4 years ago that this community has never been more divided against this council at the time in terms of what was going to happen to this site. It was a very volatile situation. The previous council wanted to sell it, the community did not. And it's a pretty salient lesson to all of us as councillors that you should never lose sight of what the community wants and what the community wishes for, and certainly not stop listening to the community. The rest is history for that. And actually it was when this was first discussed and debated and all the problems that really drove me to get onto council. That was really my decision point. So this is really close to my heart, this one. I'd really like to acknowledge the community group who formed out of that and have driven this project. It's been driven by, initially by the Mansfield Emergency Services Precinct Committee. And that's the community committee that for over 2 years has lobbied for emergency precincts, services precinct in Mansfield. And the Emergency Services Project Committee or Project Control Group were the ones who propagated this project right from the start. And they actually contributed funds to the initial scoping study that was done. So this has been very much a community-driven project. And I'd really like to acknowledge the work that those people have done, those members of the community have done, because it's a heck of a result. The drawings of this look terrific, and they're also a lot of work by the consulting group involved, and the management team within the Shire who've driven this as well. So I'd like to thank the community for their involvement, and it's with great pride that I move this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Councillor Rabi is seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a problem for Mansfield and the surrounding regions for some time that we as a community have been vulnerable to emergency situations, given the geographic location that we live in. The demand for emergency services is increasing because of population growth, increased visitations to the area, and the frequency of natural disasters in the last 10 or so years. The poor condition and limitation of the existing emergency service infrastructure is significant. And if it remains unaddressed, it will increase the vulnerability of Mansfield as a Shire community and the surrounds. There's a critical need to strengthen the resilience of the Mansfield Shire community and wider region to prepare for and to respond to emergencies and disaster situations. I'm exceedingly happy that this project is moving on, with the view that, obviously Ambulance Victoria have been there for a long time, and their accommodations are less than adequate. And very happy that we have a multifaceted area with a community area amongst it that makes it unique to Victoria. And I'm so happy to support Councillor Holcomb in the motion. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. If I could just add, on the recent census, I noticed that Mansfield and Mansfield Shire, this participation in voluntary organisations is well above the average of the state. And I think this will really, having a centre like this, an emergency services precinct, front and centre, will only encourage and help people to want to come out and volunteer. So I think it's, it's obviously a great, will be a great facility. And I'd like to thank the consultants who put these reports together. I think they've done an outstanding job. Probably the best I've seen come across our desk in the last 12 months. So it's been really good. So without further ado, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item number 14, Assembly of Councillors. Can I recommend a motion in relation to this item? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Motion B that Council receive and note the Assemblies of Councillors report for the period 29 June to 12th of July 2022.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Holcomb. Councillor Webb, do you wish to speak to the Assembly? No, okay. Anyone else? I'll put that motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item number 15 is the Council Meeting Resolution Actions Status Register. Councillors, can I have a motion in relation to this item? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That council receive and note the resolutions register as at 11 July 2022.
Seconder, Councillor Holcomb. Anyone wish to speak to this agenda item?
Just to say, I appreciate the new format of the report.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item 16, item number 18 is the closure of the meeting to members of the public. Can I have a motion in relation to that item? Councillor Sladden.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion is the council close the meeting to members of the public under section 66, subsection 2A of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider confidential reports in accordance with the said section of the Local Government Act 2020 for reasons set out in section 19 below, which is the award of tender for the HVR stage 2 construction.
Thanks, Councillor Sladden. A seconder for that motion, Councillor Raby. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried, so we will now close the meeting to members of the general public, and we will return once that meeting is finished. And if you're still around, we'll see you then.
The other two. meeting can proceed.
Thanks, Miss Frick, and welcome back to the Mansfield Shire Council's July meeting. We just like to advise everyone that the awarding of the contract for the second stage of the heavy vehicle bypass was awarded to Northeast Civil, who are the company that are doing the first stage. So for your information, other than that, I'd like to close the meeting, the July meeting, and like to thank Ms. Frick for her great effort running it, governance-wise and live stream. You did a good job. And thank you, Bill, for your participation as well in your first meeting at Mansfield. So I'd like to officially close the meeting. Wish you all good night and see you next time.
Thanks, James. Thank you. Good night.
All right.